UFC Vegas 44, aka UFC Fight Night, Rob Font versus Jose Aldo. Welcome to our prelim card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by the name of Zan, I go by the name of Harris, and as usual, we're giving you our fight-by-fight breakdown, fight-by-fight analysis, specifically from the betting perspective. Here to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights you want to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action towards the end of the video. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure you hit the thumbs up, and make sure that you participate in the comments. We want to make sure that we hear from you and have some really good conversation. This is a very busy card, 15 overall fights, 9 of them are on the prelim. So we're going to get right to work. We're going to go to fight number 1. We have Luis Smolka taking on Vince Morales. For this fight, Luis Smolka, he last competed December 2020. He beat Jose Alberto Quinones in that fight. Ground specialist, we know that from Smolka at this point, likes to throw punches to the body as well. Kicks to the body, pretty active, good cardio as well. He does have some chain wrestling ability, kind of relentless with that wrestling approach at times. He can get predictable on the feet, although his stand-up definitely is improved. But again, with these ground specialists with improved striking, he has sort of fallen in love with his stand-up a bit. Doesn't actively take the fight to the ground as much as I want him to, at least in his last couple of fights. Defensively, pretty prone to that leg kick. He doesn't really check them. Prone to counter punches as well. It kind of comes in his style on the feet, not being as technical as it could be. He does have some clinch work against the cage, does have some submission defense, but suspect takedown defense. He is a good scrambler. Of course, he has good grappling, but he can be taken down. For Vince Morales, he had a unanimous decision win over Draco Rodriguez in August. Decent lateral movement, bit more of a boxing style on the feet, a lot of head movement, a lot of level changes. He will throw combinations with the hands, pretty solid right hand. We see his record there, 10 wins. 5 of them are via KO, TKO. And he is said to have a wrestling background, although 5 UFC fights, he's only landed 1 takedown. So I'm not necessarily expecting that to be a threat for him. It's a very tough fight to start off this prelim card. Neither fighter impresses me overall, and that always makes it a really hard one to bet on. We see Smolka here as the slight favorite at -150. We see Morales as the slight underdog at +125. Although Morales might be better on the feet, I don't particularly think he's more effective or more of a threat. We do know, or at least we expect, based on what we've seen in the UFC, for Smolka to have the better ground game. And I think the key to this fight is that Smolka might have the better pace as well. I'm going to go with Smolka. Ugly fight, split decision type of fight, not a fight I'm going to be betting on, but Luis Smolka is going to be my pick to start this card off.
Yeah, this is a tough one here to start off the card here. We know that when these guys go in there, it's gonna be a real fight. Both these guys show up. Both of these guys put on good fights in their previous fights in the UFC. Smolka, I give him the ground. I definitely give him the ground advantage. I give Vince Morales the boxing edge. I think he's the better striker. And if it's on the feet, I think that Morales, 12%, holy smokes. I think that Morales on the feet is going to be the much better striker. And Morales, like he pretty much built his career on that Chuck Liddell sprawl and brawl or sprawl and strike style, where he wants to keep it on the feet and he's going to test his boxing, his metal versus your metal. So I worked out versus Draco Rodriguez against Chris Gutierrez. He faced a better striker. Against Benito Lopez, he had a good showing there, but Lopez won the fight unanimous decision. But he won unanimous versus Ayman Zahabi, Justin Hugo in Bellator. He lost to Yadong Song, but there's no shame in that. When you look at Luis Smolka, there's one guy on his record that, to me, is similar to a Vince Morales, is a Matt Schnell. He lost that fight due to triangle choke. Now, I don't expect Vince Morales to pull off a triangle choke in this fight. But let me just go right to the point. I give Smolka the wrestling, but as far as the grappling, the jiu-jitsu, but as far as his wrestling, I'm not sure that he's that good at taking this down to the mat and keeping you there. No, I think he can keep you there, But as far as getting it to the mat, I don't think he's the best wrestler. And I think Morales, being the shorter fighter in this fight, 5'7" to 5'9", as you're seeing there, it's going to help him avoid some of the takedowns. It's going to help him with the takedowns. I'm not saying that he's not going to get taken down, but being the shorter fighter definitely gives you that center of gravity, allows you to get the underhooks quicker. So he should be able to defend some of these takedowns. And I think if, as it stays on the feet, Vince Morales, it's his fight to win here. So I'm going to go Vince Morales here. I think he's the underdog in this spot. I'm just thinking that Smolka's not that good of a wrestler. However, his jiu-jitsu is that good. So if he gets him down, it could be over. So basically, I'm not betting this fight. But I'm going to go Vince Morales here to keep this on the feet. I think that as the fight goes on, Smolka's going to have a harder time to get this to the mat. If Vince Morales survives that first round, I see Vince Morales piling on the boxing. So I'm going to go Vince Morales here to pull off the upset here.
Fight number 2, we have Alex Morono taking on Mickey Gall. Alex Morono, we know that he beat David Zawada back in September. Solid boxing, at least solid MMA boxing. Real good overhand right to follow that jab. Definitely has some pop in his punches as well. A decent jab, decent combinations. He does have that ability to clinch against the cage. Solid elbows coming out. Good dirty boxing type of fighter. Does have some takedown ability. Doesn't really show it often enough as indicated by his numbers. Less than half of a takedown per fight. Does have a little bit of grappling ability as well. So not completely one-dimensional from that perspective. I don't love his striking defense. Decent counter puncher though. And cardio might be an issue with him. But I would say I was very satisfied with his cardio in his last fight. But decent overall fighter, somewhat basic overall fighter as well. But somebody that has a lot of toughness to him. For Mickey Gall, he beat Jordan Williams via rear naked choke back in July. Still looks pretty green on the feet to me. Still looks uncomfortable. He fights from the outside. He'll mix in that calf kick, good body kick as well. He'll mix in some jabs, mix in some straights. Decent right straight. His strength is definitely in his ground game. Of course, to that point, only 1.32 takedowns per fight, 28% accuracy. So, kind of similar to the Louis Smolka commentary. He can grapple, not the strongest wrestler, however. We see from a grappling perspective, he averages almost 2.5 submission attempts per fight. Of course, that's going to tell you when you look at his sub versus his takedowns, much more of a grappler as opposed to a wrestler. But from a prediction perspective, of course, what I'm expecting here, Morono to be better on the feet, much better on the feet than Mickey Gall. Morono probably could be the better wrestler as well. Gall definitely should be the better grappler. And when I look at those situations, one fighter has the striking and the wrestling versus the other fighter who has the grappling. I typically go with the fighter who has the wrestling and the striking. In that situation, at least in my opinion, that is Alex Morono, minus 220, a little steep. I'm not really going to bet on this because I can't rely on either fighter. But for making a pick, Alex Morono is going to be that pick.
Yeah, I'm going to be real fast on this pick here. I give Mickey Gall the size. He's going to be the bigger fighter in this fight. He tends to be the bigger fighter in a lot of these fights. And I give him the jiu-jitsu. You might have the jiu-jitsu advantage. But that's pretty much it. I give Morono the striking, the wrestling, the Muay Thai striking, the boxing. They give him the kick advantage. I give him the wrestling advantage. So I give him a lot of advantages here in this spot here. But as far as the wrestling, it could be even because Mickey Gall, again, is going to be the bigger guy. And that can just lean towards him having the advantage in the wrestling. But I don't think it's that wide. I think that Morono is the far better fighter in this fight. I think he's going to get it done here. Again, the only thing you got to worry about in this fight is Mickey Gall somehow getting a submission in this spot here. But I think if Morono keeps it on the feet, stuffs one takedown, I think after he stuffs the takedown, it's going to change the tempo and the whole fight. Mickey Gall's going to go for 1 or 2 takedowns. If Morono stuffs them, the fight's over. And at that point, Morono's just going to march him down and pick him apart. I really like Morono in this spot. I'm going to make a bet on this one. So I'm going to definitely make a bet on Morono. So I'm going to go Morono here. He's on a roll. It's his time. It looks like he's turned his career around. And he's fighting Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall lost to Diego Sanchez, I believe. So Morono is my guy in this spot.
Fight number 3, we have Jared Vanderaa taking on Azamat Murzakanov. Vanderaa, he lost to Alexander Romanov back in October. Big, slow, sturdy fighter. We see him there 6'4", fills out that heavyweight division at 265 pounds. Very hittable, definitely has a chin though. Definitely has that toughness factor to him as well. I will say his striking looked improved in his last fight. He did add that calf kick that's pretty regular, pretty improved as a counter striker as well. And the odd time here and there, despite the numbers, I do see him go for the takedown, make it dirty against the cage if needed. Again, just a really tough, big heavyweight. Azamat Murzakanov, he is an undefeated Russian fighter making his UFC debut. 10-0, he competed on Dana White Contender Series back in August. Southpaw, light on the feet, a lot of in and out movement, uses the fakes, uses the feints to set up those counters, and uses that overhand left hook a lot. Has some good power on his punches as well. Now, we see the newcomer as the minus 195 favorite. We see Jared Vanderaa as the plus 165 underdog. What makes this fight very interesting is that Murzakanov, he's a light heavyweight. That's what he competed as in the Dana White Contender Series in August as a light heavyweight. That's what his other fights are at, light heavyweight. But he's coming into this fight in a heavyweight fight. Vanderaa is a very big heavyweight. He's going to outsize him by 6 inches. He's going to outweigh him by, we don't know exactly how much. But I asked myself, how does Murzakanov's power translate to the heavyweight division? I asked myself, how big is he going to come in at weigh-in? I asked myself, is his style going to be effective against somebody who is just simply a bigger body? I think this fight really just comes down to size. This is a bit of a trap fight, in my opinion. Again, Vanderaa, 6 inches taller, 9-inch reach advantage as well. And like I said, he fills out that 265, whereas we don't know what Azamat's going to come in at come weigh-in, considering the fact that in August he weighed 205. I can't imagine him to be a true 265 in any way, shape, or form. Trap fight written all over it. I'm not saying Vanderaa necessarily wins, but I won't be surprised if Azamat loses. And actually what I'm going to do on this channel is I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go with Jared Vanderaa. He's not the better fighter at all. He's just simply the bigger fighter in this fight. So I'm going with the underdog, Jared Vanderaa.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I like your breakdown here. So we give the real breakdowns at Boxing MMA Picks here. That's some real stuff, man. That's a sizable underdog versus Azamat Murzakanov, and we know that UFC fighters in their first fight in the UFC, a lot of times the jitters or something, and a lot of times they don't perform. We got to get the stats on this, Harris. We got to get the stats on newcomers in the UFC just to have there, just to speak about, because it does matter. For some reason, a lot of these fighters in their first fight are not how they are in their second and third fight. So I'm definitely understanding why you went with Vanderaa. Oh, man. Vanderaa is really good at beating these smaller guys, too. Like, he's good at beating these smaller guys. He's good at wearing them down. He has decent cardio. He looked good against, was it Justin Tafa in that fight?
Yeah, he won a unanimous decision.
I was so surprised he won that fight. But I'll make it quick, man. Where is Murzakanov from? Russia. So I'm going to go with him. I know he's 35 years old. That's my only concern here. But I think that in open field here, I think he's going to connect on Vanderaa. He has power. And I think that he has the ability to knock out Vanderaa. But again, I just think he's the better fighter. But of course, size matters. Size could be the reason Vanderaa gets it done. So I wouldn't put a bet on this. I think this could be a trap as well as Harris. But I'm going to go with Azamat Murzakanov. I believe that he has enough wrestling knowledge, even at that size, to negate Jared taking it to the mat. And I think that on the feet, I just think that he's going to have the better striking, the better boxing. And I think he's going to be able to land the better shots. So I'm going to go Azamat here to eventually find that chin here and get this done. But again, I wouldn't put a bet on this fight here. Vanderaa, the underdog, is so much bigger, 6'4" to 5'10", 265 pounds versus a light heavyweight. Your money's on the line. You don't want to. There's other fights on this card. Like Harris said, this is a long card. you can skip this fight, but I'm gonna go Azamat. I think he gets it done, but I can't feel I wouldn't put money on this
one. Fight number 4, we have Claudio Puelles taking on Gruetzemacher. For Claudio Puelles, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Jordan Levitt back in June via unanimous decision. Tall Muay Thai style fighter, also a southpaw, a bit of a hesitant striker. We see his significant strikes landed per minute very low at 1.76 per. Good fakes and feints though, good kicks, decent hands, does have a bit of a ground game. I've seen him attempt submissions. We see almost one submission attempted per fight. I've seen him pull guard, stay on his back. I don't love that, especially in the UFC scoring system. I've seen him scramble pretty decently if he is taken down. I've seen him intelligently use grappling to his advantage, and I've seen him land takedowns as well. Of course, we see the takedown numbers there at 3.35 per fight. But again, on the feet, Muay Thai style fighter, that's what you're going to expect to see from him. And I expect this fight to stay on the feet. Of course, going up against Chris Gruetzemacher, he beat Rafa Garcia back in July. More of a toughness than skill type of fighter. Likes to walk you down flat-footed, pretty slow. He does have some pop though. He definitely showed his chin in his last fight. Rafa Garcia was hitting him with some hard shots early in that fight. Showed his chin, showed his heart. Also started putting his punches together pretty well in that fight, starting in round 2. And don't forget, he's introduced in the ring as a jiu-jitsu practitioner for somebody who keeps the fight on the feet. But I'll be honest, not really much to say beyond his toughness and his willingness to engage. That's kind of what you're going to expect from him in a UFC fight. I can definitely see why this line is as close as it is. This is a pick'em fight. Each side is minus 110. I mean, you look at the younger, more talented fighter in Claudio Puelles. You look at the older, tough veteran who breaks guys like this down in Chris Gruetzemacher. But this is a bit of a gut check here. I am going to go with the younger, more talented fighter. I was pretty satisfied with Claudio Puelles' cardio in his last fight, in a fight that was very wrestling and grappling heavy versus Jordan Levitt. So I think the cardio will work to his advantage. And I can also see Puelles using his distance, his size, his forward reach advantage. I can see him using that distance control to sort of stay out of danger from some of the bigger shots that could come from Chris Gruetzemacher. So shaky pick if I were to actually put money on this. So again, not a fight I'm going to put money on, but I am going to go with ultimately the younger, more talented fighter, and that is Claudio Puelles.
Holy, yeah, this is tough. This is another hard one that you want to kind of be careful of. But I'll be real fast. Your guy Claudio Puelles, he can't pop a grape. That guy has, I don't think he has any knockouts. Does he have any knockouts even in the amateurs? Can you hit him up? Let's see if he has that knockout ability to win this fight. Let's see if he has that finishing him by strikes avenue. I want to see that. That's important. I'm doing this. I want the viewers to see what we look at, right?
Just as a head kick, that's more luck than anything.
So a head kick, and that was against a fighter. What's his name? Alvaro Supistati, a fighter that's 4-3. Yeah. So this guy has no power. This guy can't knock out your grandma. This guy, the only way he's gonna finish Gruetzemacher, and I'm not high on Gruetzemacher. I think he's one of the lower level fighters in the UFC. But I just feel that Puelles, because he doesn't have the power, that's going to be a problem in this fight. If you really look at the guys that beat Gruetzemacher, check his record out. The guys that beat him are black belt, like high level grapplers, or guys that have pop and then they knock him out. Those are the fights he loses, right? So I think Puelles, he has to submit him in that first round. If he doesn't submit him in the first 2 minutes, like even 2-3 minutes, I think that Gruetzemacher, as the fight goes on, he's going to do that robot fighting, that zombie fighting, where he just keeps walking in, he gets hit, and then he lands like 2 or 3 on you. And this guy's cardio, it's there. It's definitely there. So I'm going to go Chris Gruetzemacher to get this done here. I can see him having a rough first round, but I think as the second and third round go, Puelles is going to have a hard time taking him to the mat, and Gruetzemacher is just going to have that relentless stalking. He's gonna control the cage, octagon control, and he's just going to box him up here. So I'm going to go Chris Gruetzemacher again. I don't feel confident here because, again, I think he's a really low-level fighter. But when I look at the styles here and I look at Gruetzemacher, you'd have to knock him out or submit him. So basically, Claudio has one avenue to win this fight, which is submission, because he can't knock this guy out. I think Chris has more avenues. I think Chris has the decision avenue. I think Chris has the knockout avenue, getting referee to stop the fight. So I'm going to go Chris here to get this done in a really close fight, as the odds indicate.
Fight number 5. We have a fight that was supposed to happen way back in February, finally happening in December. We have Alonzo Menifield taking on William Knight. Menifield, since that fight was supposed to happen back in February, he's won 2 fights since then. He beat Fabio Cherant in March. He beat Ed Herman in August. A lot of level changes, some in and out movement, somewhat decent movement in general for as big as he is physically. Keeps his hands up defensively, likes to throw those overhand hooks. Definitely has that touch of death power. He can diversify with some leg kicks as well. Good strong clinch, good wrestling, good strength, good physique, of course. A lot to like on paper with Alonzo Menifield. Of course, the biggest concern is his cardio tank. Once that blows, and it does blow every fight, he's just a completely different fighter, very unreliable fighter once that cardio goes out the window. But he's going up against William Knight, and William Knight, in a lot of ways, is a very similar fighter. 1-1 since their original fight was supposed to happen back in February. William Knight lost to Dawoon Jung in April. He beat Fabio Cherant, so they both have that Fabio Cherant W to their name. In August, he does consider himself a brawler, has a decent calf kick, likes to use it pretty often, fights at a distance, looks for those takedown opportunities. We know at some point he's going to try to get you against the cage and implement that takedown. 2.36 takedowns per fight, over 50% accuracy. So it works. Does have some decent transitions on the ground as well. Again, another physically strong fighter here. But that Dawoon Jung fight was interesting. That showed some holes in his game. It showed that he can be taken down very easily. His takedown defense is at 40% at this point. Doesn't really offer much off of his back either. So again, a very big hole in his game here. I think that takedown defense might make the difference in this fight. Menifield doesn't have too many takedowns to his name, but I have been impressed with his wrestling when he does decide to use it, at least, again, just based on the raw physical strength that he has. And when you tie that in with William Knight's lack of takedown defense, I could potentially see that happening at least once or twice in the first round. Both guys have cardio concerns. Both guys have a ton of power. I think Menifield has a bit more power to me. I think William Knight has a bit better wrestling to me. But again, Knight's inability to defend a takedown, it might work against him. I'm not saying that Menifield is going to be a super strong wrestling exhibition in this fight, but I do think that it is a potential avenue that he could use. Really, what it comes down to, it's a coin flip type of fight. 2 very big, strong, athletic guys who can knock each other out. And neither of them have cardio, and both of them completely change as fighters once their cardio tank runs out. Very much a coin flip type of fight. But I think the coin is going to land in Menifield's favor here. This is more of a gut pick than anything. He's slightly bigger, slightly more power, in my opinion, maybe slightly more dangerous on the feet. And I think that this could be a fight where somebody gets knocked out. So I'm going with Alonzo Menifield. I think he's going to catch William Knight before William Knight catches him.
Yeah, I'll make mine quick. I'm going Menifield as well. Like you said, both these guys have that cardio issue in the past. And with that cardio issue, you can't expect this to be a grappling heavy match. This is likely going to be on the feet. And when you look at it in terms of on the feet, Menifield is a far better boxer. He throws complete combos, punches. Like he's just the technical better boxer versus William Knight. At some points, William Knight looks amateurish in his striking. Again, William Knight is super strong. That's one of his attributes. He's really, really strong. And he can power you to the ground. But I think Menifield is equally as strong here to keep us on the feet. And again, the cardio. So I don't think they have the cardio here to push that wrestling pace for rounds. And I think when they're on the feet, I think Menifield's going to be the better striker, the better defensive striker. And I could see him catching William Knight. I think he's going to catch him in the striking sequences. So I'm going to go Alonzo Menifield. I don't want to say sure. I'm going to go Alonzo Menifield to get this done.
Fight number 6, we have Cheyanne Bays, now known as Cheyanne Vlismas, taking on Mallory Martin. For Vlismas, she beat Gloria DePaula back in July after losing her UFC debut. A good aggressive stand-up, punches coming from both hands, effective body and high kicks included. She definitely puts the pressure on you, especially if she feels she has the striking advantage. Good calf kick, good right hook, decent boxing in general, good active jab. She does have a clinch. She does have the ability to take you down. Don't be too alarmed by her numbers there. She can grapple from what I've seen, and she does have some ground and pound. Generally speaking, pretty decent IQ, high skill, good defense, dynamic striking. She's one of those fighters that really, could be a future contender, still considered a prospect at this point, but definitely one of the hotter prospects in the UFC, at least in my opinion, or at least in the women's strawweight division, I should say. Mallory Martin, on the other hand, she lost to Polyana Viana in February. Level changes in her stand-up, sneaky speed and accuracy in her strikes. Doesn't really wind up, doesn't really waste the shots at all. Picks her shots pretty well, but in my opinion, not really active enough with the striking. Bit more of a methodical striker, bit more of a technical striker. She will keep distance effectively. She has shown me that she can land takedowns as well. Over 3 takedowns per fight, good top control, good grappling. On paper, these two match up actually pretty well with one another. Similar attributes to one another, similar strengths, decent stand or good stand up on both sides, decent stand up, I should say. Solid ground games on both sides, despite the number advantages in Mallory Martin's favor. But I mean, prediction wise, I'll keep it short. I really think Vlismas is just better. I think she's a bit more intentional with her stand-up. I think she's a bit more dangerous with her stand-up. And I think their ground games might cancel each other out. So in a fight that I feel stays on the feet, I'm looking for Cheyanne Vlismas to be the aggressor. I'm looking for her to be more dangerous. I think she has the cardio to keep up. If she didn't, that would be the only thing that would get Mallory Martin back in the fight, in my opinion. But I think Cheyanne Vlismas is just the better striker, the more aggressive striker, and will use that to her advantage to at least win 2 rounds.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is a fight, again, I will tell people, man, save your money, man. This is not one of those fights you want to really put your bet on. I think Mallory Martin could be a trap. I think that this could be a trap fight for Vlismas. As you see, Cheyanne Bays changed her name. She's going through a divorce, so she's went through the divorce, and that's definitely on her mind. So that's definitely something that's on her mind here. She's not with that other guy, the guy that kept losing in the UFC. JP Bays, I believe his name was. But I just think in this fight, I think that Mallory Martin can hold her own in the striking. I don't think she's the better striker, but I think that her forward pressure, her boxing, it could be live here. But Cheyanne can also come out here and just blitz her and just finish her off, right? So Cheyanne's the more dynamic striker. So I definitely see where you went with that pick. For me, though, I think Mallory's wrestling. I think as the fight goes on, she's shown in that fight with Hannah Cifers. I know Hannah Cifers is not a good fighter, but she's shown that back against the wall, she has that heart to keep going. And when you look at who Cheyanne Vlismas fought, she hasn't really fought anybody. And when she fought that girl, Montserrat Ruiz, I believe, she was getting that playground takedown where they get your head and they just flip you over their back. Like, it was very childish. I see my little brother do it to my other little brother. and it's a very effective move when you're kids. But it worked against Cheyanne or Cheyanne Vlismas, and she looked very amateurish. So again, I think Cheyanne could be the better fighter everywhere, but I give Mallory Martin the heart. I think her striking is decent enough, but I give one area to Mallory is that wrestling, and I think that she could be able. She may be able to get some takedowns. So I'm going to go with the underdog here. Again, I'm not betting this fight, so I don't want anyone really to go in on this based on my prediction here, because I think this is a fight that is a really tough fight to decide here. But I'm going to go Mallory Martin here to 2 rounds out of 3, get some takedowns. I just think she has the heart here on the wrestling. So I'm going to go Mallory to get this done. But again, this is a really tough fight.
Fight number 7, we have Jake Matthews taking on Jeremiah Wells. I'm going to actually double check that on Tapology. I believe the order is a little bit different. Yes, so we're going to stick to the Tapology order here. Fight number 7 is Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on Manel Kape. For this fight, Zhumagulov, he beat Jerome Rivera back in July. That was via standing guillotine. Decent stand-up, decent boxing, decent kickboxing. I like his jab to the body, solid grappling, solid wrestling, almost 1.5 takedowns per fight. We see the numbers there, 1.4 specifically. He'll use decent stand-up to set it up as well. Good movement, especially as a southpaw. We see their switch stance fighter, but I do see him do a lot of southpaw. Fights off the back foot a lot, though, almost as if he's retreating. It is pretty easy to apply pressure, and that doesn't really look good in the judge's eyes, in my opinion. Really good cardio, though, doesn't slow down, so he is going to keep, or we can expect him to keep up that pace and look the same way in round 3 that he did in round 1. That's something that definitely could work to his advantage. For Manel Kape, he beat Odi Osborne via flying knee in August, so it does have a little bit of momentum behind his name, finally, at this point. Southpaw, patient stand-up, takes the time to find the distance and the timing. He will use that switch stance. Again, we see him there as southpaw, but I have seen him do a lot of switch stance fighting. Good speed on the feet, good in and out movement, use the feints, use the fakes, use the level changes. Pretty explosive. He'll definitely use that explosiveness to shoot in for a takedown or throw a lot of power and speed into the strikes, a fast, explosive 1-2 as an example. His fight versus Mateus Nicolau, that fight showed that he can be taken down, although he has 80% takedown defense on paper, small UFC sample size, of course. This is a tough fight, very tough fight, good fight. Both fighters are pretty well-rounded. Manel Kape minus 240 as the favorite. Zhalgas Zhumagulov plus 200 as the underdog. I am going to say that this fight is a lot closer than the odds would indicate. I think Zhumagulov can have moments early in the fight. I think he'll be tough. I think he'll be game all night. But ultimately, I think Manel Kape is just the more talented fighter. I think there's still a level to Manel Kape that we have yet to see. And I think this is a great opponent, especially with that momentum that he has behind his name with that flying knee. I think this is a great opponent to kind of show that level to his game that we have yet to see. So I'm going with Manel Kape on a bit of an assumption that he shows us a level that we haven't seen before. Again, I would not put any money on this. I would not include this on any parlays at all. But yeah, I'm going to go with Manel Kape.
Yeah, I'm going to make mine quick. I'm going Manel Kape here. The only concern with Manel Kape here is he's very patient as a striker. He's not very active. So, but I think this is a tailor-made fight. I really believe it. I think this is a fight. I'm going to actually go on the opposite of Harris. I think this is a fight that you can put on your tickets here. I think Manel Kape is just, I think this is a stylistic fight that Zhumagulov's not going to be able to win here, because you have to look at it like this. So Zhumagulov, he can wrestle, but his wrestling level is not that high. It's good against guys that are not good wrestling, but Manel Kape has good takedown defense. And he's going to be able to stuff these takedowns, also being the younger guy, the stronger guy. And he's going to be able to counter Zhumagulov, be the quicker guy. And I think he finishes him here. I think this is a spot that I really like, I'm not going to say finish on the channel, but I think Manel Kape here, I think this is a stylistic fight. I think when I was reading something, what was that website I was reading it on? I don't know if it's a legit website, but if it's not real, it's not real. But on the sportsgrill.com, they're indicating that my guy, what's his name again? Yeah, my guy Manel Kape is getting paid like 73,000 or 70,000, and then 4,000 sponsorship. So he's getting paid 70,000. He's a new fighter, and Zhalgas is getting paid 20K. UFC needs Manel Kape to win. He has that personality here. I think they studied what Zhalgas does and what Manel does, and I think they stylistically made a fight that Manel Kape can't lose here. I'm gonna go Manel Kape.
Let's move on then to fight number 8. Again, going based on the order of Tapology. We have Jake Matthews taking on Jeremiah Wells. Let's just get loaded up here on this screen. For this fight, tough fight. Jake Matthews, he lost to Sean Brady in March. Can't be too mad at that. A pretty solid stand-up. He actually had some pretty decent moments in that Sean Brady fight. Looks like he has good footwork, good movement, good combinations. Looks like he controls center of octagon when he can, of course. Good jab, good overhand right, good counter puncher as well. Pretty good pace on the feet. Bit of a ground game as well. Almost 2 takedowns per fight. BJJ black belt. Half a submission attempt per fight. So pretty well-rounded fighter in Jake Matthews, and a pretty tough opponent for anyone. Again, including Sean Brady in that fight. Jeremiah Wells, on the other hand, he is on a 3-fight winning streak. He beat Warley Alves in his UFC debut. It's a pretty big win for a debut. Knocked him out. Had him really hurt, stumbling in that fight. I've seen him switch stance. In the southpaw, he likes that side kick. Very explosive fighter, introduced as a striker with a background in jiu-jitsu. I haven't really seen the jiu-jitsu. I almost don't need to see it based on the type of fighter that he's been. High-paced fighter with scary power, physically strong, good offensive wrestling, good ground and pound when he's on top. Wouldn't say he has the best takedowns, though, in my opinion. I mean, at the pace that Jeremiah Wells goes at, I have to assume, especially with his physique, that his tank can only last so long. So that's still a question mark in this fight. He swings big, he misses big. If he catches Matthews, the fight could be over very quickly, as it was in the Warley Alves fight. If he doesn't, I think Matthews can win on points here. So it's a fight that I don't want to bet on, because again, you have that one fighter with touch of death power versus a person who can kind of rack up the points. But again, stylistically, when I think about that situation, the big puncher a la Derek Lewis versus the fighter who can rack up points a la Cyril Gane, I typically go with the person who can rack up the points. And I think that will be Jake Matthews in this situation. I think he's the better overall fighter. And again, big if, but if he can stay away from that scary power that Jeremiah Wells has, I have to imagine he can win at least 2 rounds, if not all 3. So I'm going with Jake Matthews here. Minus 180 is scary because of Jeremiah Wells' power. But if Matthews can somehow avoid and or take that power, I can see him cruising to victory here.
Yeah, this is a hard one, because I was actually looking at Jeremiah Wells, and I just thought, this guy's so strong, and this guy might just knock out Jake Matthews. When you look at Jake Matthews' body of work, though, he's been in there with the better guys. I think eventually in this fight, I think he can hold his own in the strike, and he might be the better striker, Jake Matthews. He probably is the better striker, technically. But he's definitely the better wrestler. And I think he's the overall better MMA fighter. So I'm going to echo your pick here. I'm going to go with Jake Matthews for pretty much the same reasons. I think outside of a flash knockout, I think Jake Matthews, after the first couple minutes in the fight, is still there. I think he's going to cruise away here. I don't think that Jeremiah Wells, the cardio, is going to be there. Jake Matthews is a vet. He can go that 3 rounds. And I think the wrestling, I think he's going to go to his wrestling. I think he might feel this power early. and just straight up go for those takedowns, those single legs, and get them to the mat. So I'm gonna go Jake Matthews here to get it done here. I think he's just on a higher level as far as mixed martial arts go.
A final fight of the prelims. In that case, fight number 9, we have Maki Pitolo taking on Duško Todorović. Maki Pitolo plus 135 as the underdog, Duško Todorović minus 160 as the favorite. Pitolo's on a 3-fight losing streak. Lost to Julian Marquez in February. Doesn't really have too many tools at this level, but we know he's going to keep the fight on the feet. We know he's going to throw a lot into his punches. We know he has some pop. We know he likes to engage. Definitely a scrappy and tough fighter as well. Decent boxing, I will say that. He does have some decent wrestling and takedown numbers as well. 2.5 takedowns per fight at over 50% accuracy. So again, I don't think he has too many tools, but he does have some decent tools that could work to his advantage. And I think they will in this fight. Duško Todorović, he lost via unanimous decision to Gregory Rodriguez. That was back in June. 2-fight losing streak. Those were his first 2 professional losses. Definitely starting to get exposed a bit here. Diverse MMA striker, steady pace about him, effective calf kick, to close distance. I will say for the most part, he is an intelligent striker. He does pick his spots pretty well, although I don't like how he does it technically. He lunges into the strikes at times. We've seen that cost him several times. And of course, we know he has that very frustrating style of defense where he leans back. It just doesn't work at this level. Before last fight, we questioned it. After his last fight, I'm just definitely going to conclude that it does not work at this level, that lean back style. We've seen guys touch him. We've seen it time and time again. I think this is a trap fight for Todorović. I think Pitolo can potentially land takedowns as well, which is crazy to say. Pitolo is also the more effective striker, in my opinion. Todorović obviously is supposed to be the more talented fighter, but I haven't been impressed with him at all at this level, especially his defensive IQ. So unless he makes drastic changes to his game, I just can't pick him. I can't pick Todorović. I can't trust Todorović. And for somebody who has pretty decently sound boxing in Maki Pitolo, I can see him just using that to his advantage, throwing 3-punch combinations. The third one's going to hit him. The third one's going to hit Duško Todorović. And I think Maki Pitolo has the ability to do that time and time again. And I don't think Todorović has shown me the defensive IQ to do anything different. So again, bit of a trap fight here, but I'm actually going to go with Maki Pitolo. 3-fight losing streak. He's going to be hungry to stay on the roster, and he's facing the perfect person to kind of expose again. And I think Maki Pitolo pulls out the win.
Yeah, I was going back and forth here on this one, but I'll make this one fast. I'm going Duško Todorović here. The reason being, I think that he's fought 2 really tough fighters, Punahele Soriano and Gregory Rodriguez, and these were really hard fights for a newcomer into the UFC. I know he beat the Quan Townsend, but again, after that, they put him in there with the Wolves. And I look at Maki Pitolo, I think he has the wrestling advantage. I give the striking to Duško, but I just believe that he's on a 3-fight losing streak. I think he's done. I think he's going to lose this fight. I think Duško is going to come back as a better fighter. When you look at Maki Pitolo's win, his only win is against Charles Byrd. So they both don't really have any impressive wins here. So I'm going to go with the younger guy here. The guy I think the UFC wants to win this fight to push the MMA in that part of the world. And I just think Duško, I think he's going to, don't forget what Duško did before his 2 losses. Before he lost those 2 fights. He knocked out Michel Pereira, the guy that does all those backflips. And he knocked out Teddy Ash, Shota, like he was knocking everybody out or finishing them. And then he went to the UFC, and then he faced 2 monsters. So I just think Duško has more than Pitolo. I think he's the better fighter, and I think he's going to come back and show a different Duško and get this win.
Let's take it to Vegas at that point. Let's take a look at the prelim card, some potential underdogs that we feel maybe has the best shot at winning. I'll start here. I have two underdogs. I think they have a really good shot at winning. Claudio Puelles, we've seen this fight at even money. We've seen Claudio Puelles as high as a plus 100 dog. So I am going to include him there. And I'm also going to include Maki Pitolo. Again, I haven't seen it from Duško. So at this level. So unless, again, he drastically changes something, I just can't go on his side. So two underdogs that I think have a decent shot at winning, Claudio Puelles and Maki Pitolo. What about yourself?
I'm going to go with Vince Morales.
Vince Morales, plus 110. Again, a good pick there as well. Definitely has a shot at winning that fight. Luis Smolka, just not that guy. So I can definitely see that happening with Vince Morales. In terms of favorite picks or any potential parlay action, what are you taking a look at here?
All right, I like Manel Kape. And I'm going to throw in there Alex Morono.
All right, so those two fights, that would be a plus 108. $100 will return 208. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return 521. I'm going to go in a bit of a different direction here. And I know you gave some caution to this fight, but I do feel pretty good with the gut pick here. Cheyanne Vlismas, I'm going to go with her. And I'm also going to go with, again, another potentially dangerous one, but I have to go with the better fighter, Jake Matthews. Those two fights would be a plus 135. $100 will return 235. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return 589. So we are going to sign off at that point. This has been the UFC Vegas 44, aka UFC Fight Night prelim card prediction video, Rob Font versus Jose Aldo. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up on this video and make sure that you participate in the comments. We want to hear from you, how you feel about our picks. Who are your underdog picks for this fight? What parlays are you considering? We want to hear all of that in the comments below. Of course, he goes by the name of Zan. Of course, I go by the name of Harris. And of course, we are Boxing MMA Picks, officially signing off for UFC Vegas 44, aka UFC Fight Night, Rob Font versus Jose Aldo, prelim card prediction video. And as usual, let's get this money.
Let's do it.